It is time for the mid-year check-in. 6 months of 2025 have come and gone, which is crazy to say, but I want to let you know what I've read so far and what I've loved so far. And also kind of check in on my reading goals for the year and kind of switch it up, see how I'm progressing, and see how I can achieve it before the end of the year. So let's go through the stats of the 6 months of 2025 so far. I have only read 30 books this year so far, which is 4 books less than this time last year. And it's like the least amount I've read in 6 months since like 2019, I want to say. Like I don't know what to say about this, but I feel like right now I either kind of have to accept that this is where I am right now with my reading, or kind of try and push through and figure out how to get that number up. I'm gonna try and do a bit of both because I'm really enjoying the books that I'm reading, which we will see soon from the stats, and I also want to get the number up, but I don't want the quantity over the quality, I want the other way around. So I'm gonna try and read a bit more books, maybe try and get to 70 books like I did last year, maybe a little bit more, we'll see. In terms of pages, I read 14,420 pages so far, and it is 271 pages less than last year. Last year I read 14,691 pages, but since it's only 271 pages difference and I read 4 books less than last year, I feel like I'm reading more chunkier books this year for sure. In terms of ratings, I had 6 DNFs this year, which is the same amount as last year, which is a lot, I'm aware, but I feel like I'm prioritizing the time that I'm taking to read these books because I'm reading a lot less. So I don't want to waste time on reading books that I think that are boring and not gelling with me, that I'm not interested in. And from the stats you'll see in a minute of my star ratings, it has boosted my average rating, so that's fine by me. So I had 7 3-star reads, 18 4-star reads, and 5 5-star reads, which is 1 less from last year. Last year I had 6 5-star reads for the first 6 months. But again, DNFing this has made my average rating higher because I have had no 2-star ratings or 1-star rating. All of them are 3 and above, which is great. Also, I do half and quarter ratings, which I haven't mentioned because it's just too many things to break down. So I've only broken down and rounded them up accordingly for stats sake. And in terms of where I'm sourcing my books, I'm definitely reading more of my physical TBR this year. So out of the 30 books, 22 of them are from my physical TBR, 5 of them are library books, and 3 of them are from Kindle Unlimited. Your girl is getting her physical TBR down. I'm working through it this year for sure. And in terms of how much books I've hauled this year, I've only hauled 17 books in the year 2025 so far. I've already read 10 of them, which is about 60% read, which is great. I didn't track this particular part last year, so I can't tell you the average, but I can definitely tell you I have hauled way less books this year than last year for sure. So those are the stats, and by looking at them, I can definitely see that I am reading less books, but I'm still enjoying the books that I'm reading, and like I'm reading a bit more chunkier books, which again is fine, and I particularly like chunky books anyway, and I'm making a dent in my physical TBR and buying way less books, which is great. I like my book buying habits right now, and I'm trying to keep it that way and only buying sequels when I need to. And if I want to try out a book, I'm going to go to my library, which I have been. I've put a lot of holds on new releases that I want to try at the library instead of going to buy them, unless they're like my anticipated releases like Sunrise on the Reaping or Human Rights by Juno Dawson, which will come out later this year. Actually no, it came out in July. And also Emily Henry's new book as well. There's pros and cons to the stats this year and my reading this year, and it's all about balance, and I think I have it so far. So in terms of reading goals, I said I wanted to read 100 books this year, and from the looks of it, I don't think that I am going to make it. I'm going to try my very best. At least like the mark I want to get to is 70 books. That's like the hard goal, and then like the soft goal is 100 books, and we'll see if I get to that. If I pass 70 books, I will be so proud of myself. Yeah, I just really want to at least get to 70 books this year for sure. I don't know why the amount means so much to me, but it kind of does. I don't know. It shouldn't. I should just be reading and reading the books that I enjoy and not caring about how much I've read in the year. But for some reason it does. So I'm going to indulge myself this year with the amount instead of telling myself I don't really care, but I do. Because we all do, you know? And one of the goals that is to read down my physical TBR, and I have been doing that, and I want to keep working on that, and I'm making great progress. I am working on something that will definitely help me in reducing my physical TBR, so I am excited about that. And again, I'm buying less books anyway, so I'm happy with my book buying habit. So things are going on track. I know I had other goals in my goals video, but honestly it's in the vein of getting my physical TBR down, you know what I mean? So I'm fine with that. I think I wanted to get my ARCs down, but I'm prioritizing my physical TBR first before my ARCs. Let me know how many books you've read so far, and if you're struggling like me and you're kind of behind on your goal, I'm here to support you. I'm here to hold your hand and tell you it's okay. We'll get through it. We'll get to the goal that we need to get to. But anyway, let's go through my favorite books of the year so far, going month by month. So in January I did have a 5-star book, but it was Lore Olympus volume 5, I think, and it's kind of like a reread, so I'm gonna pick something else for that month that I haven't read before, and that was Malice by John Gwynne. This is the first book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, and it is my favorite book of the series so far. I'm currently reading book 4, Wrath, but I can definitely tell that so far this is my favorite. My mind might be changed, you know, you never know. But so far, this is my favorite. And I gave this book 4.75 stars. This is a great first book in a series for sure. It focuses on the characters, following them and finding out who they are as they're entering into the plot of the series. And in the series, we have a god war between Elyon and Azeroth. Think like Lucifer and Michael, they are the side of good and evil. It's a classic war between good and evil. And this war has started time and time again. There's a war between the human and the giants, and it's the same god war where it's a side of Elyon and side of Azeroth. And right now, present day, we kind of have a prophecy of avatars for each side being prophesized, and we're trying to figure out who the avatars are. So the avatar of Azeroth is the Black Sun, avatar for Elyon is the Bright Star. And the war is starting to brew again, and people are choosing sides. There's political maneuvering of, again, which side to choose. And there's a war brewing as well. So we're following a whole cast of characters in all over the world of the Banished Lands. But our main character is Corbin. And Corbin is a cinnamon roll, but also kind of plain vanilla at the same time. I really liked him in the first book, but as the series went on, I was more interested in the other characters that were a bit more complicated and had a bit more nuance to them. So my favorite characters in the series definitely Veratus, Macwin, and maybe Camlin as well, and Siwyn, but I feel like John Gwynne didn't really do justice with female main characters in this series. I've heard that his Shadow of the Gods series has better female main characters, so I'm excited for that. And the potential of Siwyn in this was a lot, but it wasn't really, nothing was really done with it, which made me feel a bit disappointed, but it's fine. Look, I really love this series. If you're looking for an epic fantasy series to start that has classic fantasy tropes, that does them really well and also twists them a little bit, you will definitely enjoy the series, but just be careful about how many POVs we have in this series. The first one is 6, the second one has 12 or 14, I can't remember, and then it kind of decreases a little bit in the third book and has the same amount in the fourth book. So it can get quite a bit complicated trying to follow all the characters, but it helped me to write down all the characters and who they are and everything, and there is a character list in book 2 onwards, so it should be okay. In February, I had a really bad reading month in February. I think I had like 3 DNS or something like that, and I read like 2 or 3 books. So my favorite book of February is The Crimson Moth by Kristen Cicarelli. I talked about this a lot in my Instagram reel and my TikTok as well, about this series in general. This was such a fun YA romantasy duology. This is the first book to the duology, and we follow 2 main characters, Rune and Gideon. And Rune is a witch that is trying to free her fellow witches from jail, and she's kind of viewed as this vigilante called the Crimson Moth. And we have our other main character, Gideon, who is trying to find the Crimson Moth. In this world, witches are killed and executed, their magic is banned, and they're being hunted, basically. So Gideon is the captain of the guard for, executing these witches. So he took one of the witches into prison, and Rune is trying to get that witch out of prison. And in order to find information for Rune about the witch and Gideon about the Crimson Moth, they both fake date each other to get information out of each other. And it's so angsty, it's so sweet. Gideon is the man, honestly. He makes a dress for her unsolicited, which is crazy. He is definitely like a broody man, and you know me and my broody men, they are my favorite. It's definitely more Grumpy Sunshine and also Hate to Love. I liked the relationship dynamic better in the second book because it got a bit more complicated in the second book, and there was more conflict and angst between the relationship, and this one was just like a build up to it. I still really enjoyed this, but I think relationship wise I prefer the second book, but plot wise I prefer the first book because I felt like the second book was a bit more predictable and I wasn't really into the book for the plot. But I still highly recommend it, and I gave this 4 stars. And then for March, I had a really good reading month in March. It was kind of like a makeup for February, and I read nothing below 4.5 stars. So it was hard to choose, but I think the one that stands out for March is Heavenly Bodies by Amani Iro. Again, spoke about this a lot in my Instagram and my TikTok. Loved this so much. This is a first book to a brand new romantasy series. The second book is coming out later this year, and I'm really excited. I will say with my reviews about this book, take it with a grain of salt because I read the indie published version of this book instead of the traditionally published version. So there are changes within how the story is told. So the only synopsis I know obviously is because I read the indie version, but I have since realized that it's not the same in the published version. So I won't give a synopsis, but it is celestial magic based on, I want to say, zodiacs. It's like a retelling of zodiacs because they're not quite zodiac names, which I thought was really interesting. And there is a god for each of the zodiac, and they have their own kingdom. For example, we have Ariete, who is the king of stars, god of wrath, war, and blood. And Ariete kind of relates to Aries. And then we have Leon, who is god of pride, arts, prophecy, and the light. And Leon also correlates to Leo, that kind of thing, which I think is really interesting. And our main character is forced to flee her kingdom to her neighboring rival kingdom, and the king there allows her to stay in this kingdom, providing that she kind of trains her magic and learns her magic. And the way she has to do that is to get taught by his son, the prince. And obviously there's a hate to love romance in this because they are both from rival kingdoms. He is definitely a Leo man, and he does have powers from the god of Leon. Our male main character Enzo is definitely a Leo man, and let me tell you, I love the relationship. This definitely very slow burn, and the world building and the plot in this is really cool. I really highly recommend this. I gave this 5 stars. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had a bad hangover for this book, and I just cannot wait for the second book. Apparently we're going to expand the world a little bit more in the second book, which I'm excited to see because we were very confined within like 1 or 2 realms. So yeah, really excited, highly recommend this one. So in the month of April, I again have a Lore Olympus volume that got 5 stars, so I won't be using that. But I did have a book that really stood out for that month, and that is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This is a first book in a adult fantasy duology. I haven't read anything by Rebecca Ross before. This was my first book into her work. If I had a category for most surprising book of 2025, it definitely would be this one so far. I expected not to like this one because the vibe was giving magical realism, dreamlike magic, nothing is grounded, nothing is real kind of magic. And no, I was very much grounded in the world. I was thoroughly enjoying this book and very invested in the characters. And I gave this one 4.75 stars. This was just told really beautifully. We're on this island called the Isle of Cadence, where spirits live in this island together with humans. In the beginning of time, before men was on this island, spirits live here, and these spirits have elemental magic. There are the water spirits, air, fire, and earth. And men came to this island and they were living peacefully, but then war began to brew between them, and they have separated themselves between two clans, east and west. And they also kind of built an actual border between the two. And in order to keep the spirits calm and satiated, each clan give tribute to the spirits. And because there's a divide between the clans, each side has its own use for the spirit magic. So on the west side, they are able to use the spirit magic to weave it into clothes and metals, like enchantments into them, but they can't use the spirit magic for, great crops, water. The fires are a bit dimmer. But on the east side, they have great crops, the water is great, fires are burning great, but there's a cost to using the spirit magic when they're woven into the clothing and the metals. And we have our main character Jack, who has been, I guess, banished or sent away from the Isle of Cadence to live in the neighboring country, and he has been studying music. And then he got a letter from the king of the East clans, where he's from, to come back and be a bard of the East because girls are going missing in the East. Jack comes back to the Isle of Cadence and he wonders why he's being asked the bard. It's because the bard of the East recently passed away, so there is no bard for the East. So Jack is being asked to be the bard, to compose these ballads and to try and find the missing girls. He also partners up with the heir of the East, who is Adara, and her mother was the one who was the bard of the East. So Jack has to pair up with Adara, who he's known since they were children, but they weren't very nice to each other. So it's kind of like lightly hate to love. And there's another romance in this as well. We follow other characters, but truly this book is kind of like a small town drama, because the way the enchantments are woven through the clothes and the chainmail is that they have to let out a secret in order for the magic to work. This town island deals with secrets, so there's a lot of stuff that comes out. There's a lot of drama, and there's also obviously magic involved because of the spirits. I think it was really good. Fortunately, I didn't actually continue on with the series. I thought the way this ended satisfied what I wanted out of the story. I didn't need to continue, although you should, because obviously the things were revealed and the plot continues, but I didn't feel the need to. Like, I did borrow A Fire Endless, which is the second book, and tried to read it. Honestly, I wasn't interested, which was very surprising because I'm very invested in these characters. I just didn't care. Something's wrong with me in that aspect, but I did not continue on with the series. But I still do recommend this series for sure, and I definitely want to try Divine Rivals after this. And then we have May, and in May I did read Ruin, which I did give 5 stars. That's the third book in the Faithful of the Fallen series, and honestly I am still thinking about if I do want to give it 5 stars. I do have a bit of issues with that book, but the way it ended made me want to give 5 stars. I'm still thinking about it. I'm leaning towards 4.5, but we'll leave that. We'll talk about the actual book that I really liked in May, and that is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I gave this 4.75 stars. This was really good and very surprising because my favorite Emily Henry book is Beach Read, and after that it might be Book Lovers. I didn't really like any of the others. People Me Meet on Vacation is my least favorite. I really did not like that. And Happy Place was fine, and Funny Story was fine, but this was such a surprise. This does have a romance, but it has like a plot, and it's very Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo-esque for sure, because we have 2 authors that are being invited to this little island called Little Crescent to interview this famously reclusive heiress called Margaret Ives. She has lived a very open, eccentric life. She kind of went into hiding and nobody knows why. So she's finally allowed these 2 authors to come and tell her story, and we literally get a whole backstory of her life, which I thought was really, really well done. Like, I really like the timeline of going back to the flashbacks and also present timeline. The heiress Margaret has called these 2 authors as like a trial basis before she chooses one to actually tell her whole story. So these 2 are kind of in a competition and try and get the job. I really like seeing the relationship bloom between Alice and Hayden, and like the inclusion of the plot in this as well really made the book and why I really loved it. I know it's like a non-popular opinion because I know a lot of people didn't like this book, but I thought it was really good. However, I will say, like, it's definitely very Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo coded. And I felt like it scratched that itch instead of like, oh my god, this is like copy paste. You know what I mean? And then we come to June, and in June I did read a fantasy romance series. I binged it. So I'm gonna talk about like my favorite book of that series, and that is Throne of Broken Gods by Amber V. Nicole. This is the second book to the Gods and Monsters series, the first one being the Book of Azrael. And I gave this one 4.5 stars. So this series is following our main character Diana, who is been turned into a monster, also called an Igmorithian, by Caden, the king of monsters. In exchange of saving her dying sister, she has to do dirty deeds for him. And Caden is trying to find the Book of Azrael, and finding this book will definitely bring chaos into the world. And Diana is being tasked to find this book, and like hundreds and hundreds of years later, and of finding, she finally gets a lead, and she goes and investigates the lead, but stumble upon this celestial being who is on the good side of things, and he's also trying to find the Book of Azrael and keeping Caden from finding it. But he ends up getting killed, and thus summoning Samkiel, the world ender, and also the king of the gods. And Samkiel is our other main character, and again, he is the king of the gods. He's the world ender, and he's actually being isolated. Like, he isolated himself because there was a war years ago, the Gods War, and in order to save his people, he had to destroy his home world. And because of that guilt and that sadness of destroying his world, he isolated himself in a different realm. After he felt his brother in arms, his friend, dying, he comes back to society and tries to figure out what is going on. And through a series of various events, Diana and Samkiel ends up working together to try and find the Book of Azrael and also keep Caden from finding it, but in exchange for Samkiel keeping Diana's sister safe from Caden. And of course, romance blooms, and the fantasy aspect of this obviously expands. There are realms in this world to discover, obviously the gods to discover as well. I really liked the characters in this. That is the highlight point of this series. The characters and the plot, but the qualm for me is that I feel like the world's building isn't as expansive and explained, so I was very frustrated when he came to the third book. And also there's a trope in the third book that I don't really like, and that is the lying miscommunication trope between the couple. I really hated that. It made me a bit frustrated. The second book is my favorite because we focus on characters, their relationship, and kind of like second book syndrome, you know what I mean? Like, we're focusing on the character development in this and the character relationships. There is a found family aspect in this book as well, which I really loved. But again, with the world building, I felt like the author had really great ideas, really unique ideas, but wasn't expanding on them, and it made me a bit frustrated because the plot relies on the world building heavily, and I feel like we just weren't getting answers. We're just being thrown things but not being explained. Maybe it's just a me thing. I know other people were fine with that. I really enjoyed the series. I really recommend the series, especially for the characters and the romance, for sure. It's a really interesting dynamic because, like I said, Diana is a monster and Samkiel is kind of like the king of gods, the knight in shining armor. It's really cool to see their dynamic together. One's morally gray, one's okay, and normally the roles are switched, in at least from the books I've read. It's always switched. The guy is the monster and the girl is, you know, normal. So it was interesting to see, and I highly recommend the series, and I'm glad I finally read this series. I can't wait for book 4 to come out in October, and now I'm in the know of everything in this series, and I can't wait to read more fantasy romance, honestly. I'm kind of reading Zodiac Academy at the moment. Girl, I get it now. I really do get it now. And I'm scared. I'm kind of judging myself of how much I'm really liking this series. Like, it's not well written at all. But I don't know what is in this series that is making me want to know everything and be obsessed with it. Like, what is in that series? I don't understand. But anyway, that is my mid-year check-in. That is my favorite books so far this year of 2025. Let me know if any of these books that I mentioned are in your favorites list. If not, let me know what is your favorite book of the year so far. For me, I can't really choose, but it's probably Heavenly Bodies, honestly. But anyway, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to. All my socials and my book club is linked down below if you want to check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!